I know several of you in here just from Margaret, when I was principal at Margaret for 3 years, so I do see a few familiar faces out here. Also, my husband is principal at Springville Middle, and so because of that, we tend to know a lot of people. Some people know me, and people know me because my red hair, like it stands out, and people are like, I know you, I've seen you somewhere, and it's like, this is like a red light or something. So, anyway, but just to kind of tell you about myself first, and we'll let Brandy introduce herself. We've known each other for a long time, and I'm sure we'll get into that too. I'm originally from Glencoe. My parents are both educators, my mom and dad. My dad retired at 31 years teaching, and my mom retired at 30 years. So this has been a life for us forever. I went to UAB. I was bound and determined I wasn't going to be a teacher, but then I just felt like God calling me into that. But I have a biology degree. I have a minor in chemistry. So then I did my master's in science education. So that's how I ended up teaching high school science. And I taught at Pinson Valley High School for 6 years. And then I went to Aniana High School and taught. It's where I taught AP biology, anatomy, all those fun things that you get to talk to high school kids about. And when you teach those things to high school kids, they are not scared to ask you questions. So I'm going to share with you some of the questions they ask. And that's what she said. Kids are going to find these things out, whether it's from you or somebody else. And I would rather be the one teaching my kids than somebody on the bus, okay? But then I worked in central office at Aniana in technology and curriculum for a few years, and I missed the kids. So I went back to the elementary school as assistant principal. I did come to Margaret for 3 years as the principal. Then I went back to Aniana. I've been there 2 years. I have 2 daughters, so I'm in your shoes. They're 17 and 13. My youngest will be 14 next month. So we're in the middle of this, and we'll talk about our daughters in a minute, more than we wanted to. My oldest said, am I going to get to come watch you? I went, do you really want to? She went, no. I said, okay. So hobbies, my kids and my work, pretty much, I feel like. My daughters do play sports, so I love watching them, and I love to travel with my family. So if we say go, I'm gone.
So can you hear me okay? We're just going to need to like bring it closer. Oh my goodness. I'm already fighting with this thing. I want it to be tilted up more. I didn't want to be that person that was messing with it while Julie was talking. So, like, this is so awkward. So, I'm Brandy Caldwell. I'm originally from Columbus, Mississippi, so I'm not local. I'm a graduate from Stanford University and UAB. Yeah, like I was trying to tilt it and I couldn't figure it out. You wouldn't believe I used to be on a praise team and worked with this kind of stuff because I look like I've never touched it before. So.
And while they're fixing that, the full disclaimer is that we are just kind of both a hot mess. That's and we do this. And so we felt like we needed a couch up here with friends and us just chit-chatting. So if you go to dinner with us, this is what it looks like.
So anyway, I was a high school teacher for 13 years, and I'm currently in school again as a student. I've got 2 degrees, but I was like, I think I'll just get my instructional leadership certificate. So I'm back in school, writing papers, doing all that fun stuff. My current job is as an Alabama Technology and Motion Specialist at Jacksonville State University, which just means I went from teaching high school kids to teaching teachers. And if you're looking at me going, she looks so familiar. I used to work in the St. Clair County schools at the central office in technology. I would go around and work with teachers and teach them how to do stuff in technology. But then also my husband is an educator and a coach. He is coaching at Springville Middle School now, and he's an elementary PE teacher at Springville Elementary. And so we're fully invested in this whole education thing. I've got 3 kids, and their ages are 21, 13, almost 14, he reminded me the other day, and 11. And kind of my hobbies are just following my kids. I think that's probably the way all of us feel like. What are hobbies? Who has those anymore? I do love to thrift store shop. And so actually last night I sent Julie a picture of my outfit, and I said, I'm sure you will look like J. Crew and I will look like a thrift store. But I'm okay with that. But just a side note, you're wondering, how do these ladies know each other? So we taught together at Pinson Valley for about 6 years. And I said we need those t-shirts like my daughter and her friend got, one that says, I get us into trouble, and the other that says I get us out of trouble. Because definitely when we met, we were opposites. I saw how organized she was, and I said, I need to be friends with her. And that's kind of how things started. And our paths have kind of gone like this our whole professional and personal life. And so we are still friends. She still lets me just pick up where we left off. Even if it's been a month or two, we just jump right in together. And that's the kind of friends I have to have, because life is crazy. And so I need those friendships that don't require a lot of extra effort. And so we have been friends for quite a long time.
Yes, we take each other as we are.
Yes.
So, but Brandy and I also go to Cross Point together. We're both members at Cross Point. She is our Sunday school teacher, and she is just phenomenal.
I'm the
and
Bible
she's
study facilitator.
she's
That's what I am. I'm the discussion leader. I'm not the teacher,
Her
but
stories are great for Sunday school. So when we came up with this, it's like, I hope we have enough, or do we have too much? She's like, oh, by the time we tell the stories, it'll be good. So just a disclaimer, we are not experts by any means. We have learned a lot. I'm in my 22nd year in education. I'm finishing that up. In education this year's been real fun. So sending 600 elementary kids home with Chromebooks, and you get all kind of GoGuardian alerts of what they're looking up online, or what their brothers are still in their elementary kids' Chromebooks and looking up online. So when we're talking about what kids are doing, we can talk a lot about that. So it's just really from experience, dealing with parents, dealing with kids, just understanding that the behaviors that you see with your kids, a lot of times it's not the behavior. There's a reason for that behavior. And so we're going to talk about some of that, and that falls into online behavior. So we've learned from our own mess ups. We've messed up, and my youngest will tell me like it is. And one night when she was about 6, and we'll talk about them in a second, but when she was about 6, I came in and I snapped or something, and she went, just because you're tired doesn't mean you need to snap at us. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And so I was like, yeah, I'm eating crow right now. So we're going to talk about them some as we go, but so just mess ups as parents. So anyway, we've kind of put this into 4 areas that we're going to talk about, just a ways to be in the know. So the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of knowing your daughter. So I'm going to let Brandy talk about hers. And Heather, when you need us to stop, just give us the, okay?
So I have Layla, who is 11, and I mentioned I have 21 and 13, so those are both boys, and I thought that I got off easy. I'm the boy mom. I had been a cheerleading coach with high school cheerleaders for 7 years, and I did not want any part of that. So I laughed at everyone else had daughters, and then surprise fertility, still with one in diapers, they were like, oh, and by the way, you're pregnant. And I remember thinking, I cried, first of all, because I thought I was done having children. And I remember thinking before that ultrasound, well, I really hope it's not a daughter. Isn't that horrible? But I totally did, because I was like, I know how to do boy stuff. I have boy stuff. It's all good. When they said girl, I cried again, much harder. And it has been a very interesting journey from that point forward.
I have 2. Like I said, they're 17 and they're 13, and they are complete opposites. So if you have 2 girls, you may know that. Also, my oldest is super shy, will only speak if spoken to. We were on the phone the other night with, she plays basketball and doing some recruiting stuff, and the guy that was talking to her said, you're going to have to talk to coaches. I mean, she does not speak. That's who she is. She's a thinker. She processes. I have to ask her a lot of questions to get out of her what I want to know. I have to affirm her feelings. We had a situation that happened last week or a couple weeks ago, and I have to tell her it's okay to be disappointed, because she's not going to verbalize to me, I'm mad, I'm disappointed, but it's okay. And she starts tearing up. So she's one I really have to just pull things out of. My 14 or almost 14-year-old is into everything. She is the SGA president. She wants to collect items for Fultondale for the tornado. She's like, Mom, can we do this? She wants to do everything for everybody. How was your day? And it is word vomit for 10 minutes. It's like, okay. Like, I know what people wore in their classrooms that day, everything. So I have 2 totally different kids, and sometimes people are like, which one's easier to parent? Neither. This one, I know exactly what she's thinking, and sometimes it's scary because she's telling me, Mom, you're just tired, so you don't need to say that. And my other one is so quiet, I don't know what's going on in her head. So it's parenting two totally different kids, and it started when they were babies. I mean, my oldest, I could look at her and be like, and she'd walk to her room and she'd cry, and I'd say, are you done yet? She'd come out, she'd go, I'm done, and that was it. My little one, I would say, I'm going to spank you, and she'd be like, it's not going to hurt. So we would put her American Girl dolls on top of the refrigerator because it's all that would work, because she loved them. So you just have to know your kids, and that's one thing we're going to talk about. That's what leading into kind of just knowing your daughter. And as we talk today, I don't want to step on anybody's toes or anything. We're not telling you how to parent. I'm just telling you from experience and what we've seen in our lives and what we've seen in the lives of others. And especially now that I have a 17-year-old, I know kids are getting, as they get older, parents give them a little bit more freedom, and some of the things I see are just downright scary. So just sharing that with you, not, like I said, we're not trying to step on anybody's toes or anything or tell you how to parent, but just kind of telling you some things to be aware of. So the first one, just accept your kids as they are. Accept your daughter as they are. Your daughters, they came out, they have their own personality, and sometimes that's hard for us as parents. I see parents sometimes trying to relive their childhood through their daughter. And it's important for kids to know they're not going to disappoint you if they don't turn out just like you. And I say that I played college softball, and so when both my kids play sports. Now my youngest, she did some gymnastics and other things, but my oldest, she played sports. She played softball and she played basketball. Then she played volleyball in middle school. But when she was little, she played softball, and I coached her. And I constantly had to tell her, if you ever want to quit, it's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. She knows I love softball. I played softball up to about 2 years ago when our team got too old to play anymore. And so she knows I love it. She's played with us out there. But she's got to understand, you're not going to disappoint me if you choose a different path, and that is okay. And I think sometimes as parents, we want to push on our kids what we know and what's familiar to us, and I think it's very important for kids to know it's okay to be different than me. Maybe I didn't make a team, and so maybe I wasn't popular in school, and sometimes when things happen to our kids, it triggers our emotions from our childhood, and that becomes an issue. It's like hits a nerve. The situation that happened to my daughter last week is an exact situation that I had happen to me in high school, and I felt all those feelings come up, and I thought, I have got to handle this like an adult, and so that's what we did. And sometimes we just need to check ourselves before we react to see, am I reacting appropriately to this, or is this an appropriate response? So I just, being careful to make sure we don't relive our childhood through our daughter. Another thing, if our daughter messes up, it does not mean you are a failure. I had some friends when I first had babies and they stayed home. I didn't stay home with my children, and that was just the best choice for my family. My husband was a teacher at the time. We were off all summer with our kids, and that's what we chose at that time. But some people, what I would see sometimes is that if the kid messed up, the parent got really defensive. I'm like, that's not a reflection of you. They're 3. They hit my kid, but it's okay. It's not a reflection on you. So we've got to take into account that our kids are going to mess up. They're going to make mistakes. How we respond to that is the most important thing, and how we teach them how to respond is super important. And I see this a lot of times, and I have to call parents all the time and say, your kid did this. And this year, your kid is looking up pornography on the computer, okay? Parents, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm so embarrassed. Okay, and I'm always like, it's okay, kids mess up. You just need to have a talk with them. But then sometimes I have that call with a parent who wants to blame everybody else but their kid. And that's not a good situation either. There's got to be a balance of those things. Kids are going to mess up, and I say this to parents all the time on the phone. Your kid is 10. There's a reason we don't send 10-year-olds out to the world. We have them in our home to teach them. Brady's going to talk about social media here in a second. I don't want to send my kids into the world alone without having to teach them those things under my roof. When they mess up, that is an opportunity for teaching for you So I want to do that in my home versus when they move off to college. And as mine is finishing her junior year, that's really hitting me. My kids, I would not let them have social media if they was 13. And this was something Brandy did, and I kind of followed her because, you watch other moms like, oh, that's good. Well, because when you sign up for social media, it says you have to be 13. And so I told my kids that if I let you lie about that, what else am I going to let you lie about? And it was kind of my way to drag my feet to let them have in social media. My 17-year-old, I made her get an Instagram this year. And she also has a Facebook, but it was to back up games when she updated her phone. Because when she hit 13, she said, that is too much drama. She said it causes drama at school, and I don't want any part of that. So that was a choice we made for our family. But then she never wanted it, and I'm like, I need you on it so I can coach you through that. And so really this year we made her get an Instagram. Like I said, she's doing some basketball stuff. She needs to put some videos out there on social media, and so that's what we've done with her. But I want to coach that in my house before she gets 19 or 20 and she's not living under my house anymore.
By the way, thanks to my organized friend, we have all these notes. Just saying, if I was the person that put this together, I'd be walking around. It'd be like 45 minutes and be like, dang, I hadn't gotten to point number 2. So we are super organized, and we have all of these notes. And I love that some of y'all are organized. I see people taking notes. Oh, that's amazing. But anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about expectations and consequences. I think there's a lot of things as moms that nobody really teaches you. You kind of have to just figure out. And like Julie was saying, we all do look to those moms that have older kids, and we kind of see how they handled it. And you've probably all said those famous words, I'll never do that with my kid. And we've all eaten those words too. We parent in some ways like our parents did, and then we also look at what they did and go, I'm not going to be that way. So all of those things come into play when we're making these decisions. So the first thing is kids thrive on boundaries and discipline. Y'all, you know that you're at a women's conference in a church. So I'm telling you what you already know, but never ever did I realize how difficult this was to put into play till I had a girl. The boys were easier. Did this just go on? Okay, I just need to get into it. The boys are so much easier. Like, she really says she doesn't want the boundaries, but I know she does. And what's interesting is that the girls that come to our house push those boundaries more because they don't have those boundaries at their house. Is my battery going dead? She's like, yeah. Look, I've already broken the microphone. I'm fired.
It's been on for 2 days.
Yay. Okay, there we go. So let me ask a quick survey, hands up survey. How many of you, when you were growing up, had a bedtime? Have a bedtime? Okay, put your hands down. How many of you had a curfew? Okay. How many of you were ever grounded? Okay. How many people think these tweens and teens today have more pressures and temptations than you guys did? Y'all, there are people out there that do not have bedtimes for their kids. That was a struggle for me. And my daughter, who wants to go spend the night, her social calendar is ridiculous. I have to rein it in. She wants to go spend the night places. And I know there are certain places where the mom goes, I just let him stay up all night. And that's the fun thing. And that's the cool mom. And I'm the mom that's like, midnight, we're shutting it down. And they don't understand why. And I'm like, look, you can stay up giggling and talking all you want, but the lights are going to be off and the devices are going to be in my bedroom. So there's a difference in that. We all stayed up at night and giggled with our friends and did all that, but there's limits and there's boundaries. And having a almost 21-year-old, oh my goodness, in a few weeks, that's scary. Having one that old, he has said to me, thank you. Thank you for not letting me do this. Thank you for, you may not get that. I don't think my daughter will ever say it. But my oldest son has jumped in and said that and said it to the younger ones. Be glad mom didn't let you do this. Discipline at home leads to self-discipline. Julie wrote that, not me, and it is so true. I mean, when we teach them discipline at home, it teaches them how to discipline themselves. I finally let my oldest son have his phone in his room when he turned 18. Up until that point, he thought I was the meanest mom ever because I wouldn't allow his phone in his room when he slept. When it was time to go to bed, the phones are plugged up in a central location at our house. And so when he turned 18, he was so excited that he got his phone in his room. And then he learned the beauty of do not disturb mode and nighttime mode and all of that because his phone began keeping him awake. And all of a sudden he realized what mom meant was not only is that phone keeping me out of trouble during the middle of the night, but it's also letting me have rest, which I need. I will mention, I was talking to my daughter last night about some of the rules and the things that we require. And I said, what's one of the hardest rules for you? She said, some of the hardest rules are the rules about things I can't have. Like she thinks it's dumb that I'm not letting her have a hoverboard. Well, I know that she is challenged in the area of grace and balance. So I'm not ready for that emergency room visit, but her friends have hoverboards, and why can't I have a hoverboard? Why can't I have the apps that my friends have? Why can't I have it? That's what for her were the hardest rules. I'm like, well, that's pretty much all of them, all of the rules. Discipline should be appropriate for the action. And that's another thing, and Julie kind of touched on this. It is hard to discipline your kids. It's hard not to be reactive in your discipline. They will survive without their devices. You may feel like you are not going to survive until they get them back. There are ways to turn off the internet just for a device or for your child. And if you want help with that, talk to me after. I can give you some advice on that. Great story. My oldest, who really did not get in a lot of trouble in high school, got in trouble, got his phone taken away. And I said, no screens or anything for a week. And so he lived in the bedroom upstairs, and he thought he'd sneak and get on his PlayStation 4 and do some online gaming, until he realized mom knew how to turn off the internet just upstairs to the PlayStation. What? You know, so he's like, I hate that you know all that stuff. I'm like, I love it. But I did want to give two biblical examples just from some reading that I did over the past few weeks. Moses, he complained a lot to God at the beginning when God said, hey, I need you to go and speak and tell Pharaoh and tell the people, I need you to be the person that speaks for me. And Moses like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not good at it. And God said, no, here's the reasons why you can't do it. And he goes, what if they make fun of me? What if they don't listen to me? God said, look, Moses, I really need you to do this. And then finally, he was like, I'm a slow speaker. Like, he gave excuses. And it even says in the Bible, God got mad. But then he said, you know what? How about your brother Aaron? Let him talk for you. So instead of God getting mad because Moses complained, can I get a witness? My daughter does that all the time. He found a different way to make that work. And I thought that spoke to me so much, because sometimes I got to find a different way to get what I'm needing. Not giving in to her, but finding an alternate way to still get what I want and still get what I know is best for her. And that was a big one for me. And then the other one, God and Pharaoh. God said, hey, I need you to let my people go. And Pharaoh was like, you know what? Instead of that, I'm just going to take the straw away from all of the slaves so that they don't even have that. They have to go find their own. I'm going to make it harder. And so God said, all right, well, we're going to send all the plagues. So there is a time when your daughter is obstinate and she pushes back, and you do have to shut it down. But there's also times where we can find a different way to react.
One thing, as we talk about saying no, sometimes, and I'm just telling you, these kids now, that they want to know why. And I was that kid. I wanted to know why, but maybe that's the science person in me. I want to know why something happens. And so one thing that we've held, that's found in our family, is developing core values in our family. And these are things, it's just 3 or 4 things that we focus on. It's just like in a classroom, a teacher, we tell them, don't have 10 rules, have 3 or 4 rules. But there's a resource on familylife.com that can take your family through how to find your core values. If you haven't done this with your family, your kids are old enough to help you determine your family's core values. What's most important to me? And this is something that's shown inside and outside of your family. So when you have to say no to something, can you come back to that core value? Honesty, kindness, those things. We're going to be honest, okay? That goes with my kid. You're not going to have social media till you're 13 because honesty is one of our family's core values. That's important to us as a family. Kindness. When I'm on social media, I'm going to be kind to others. There's all kinds of keyboard warriors out there that want to say all kinds of things about other people because it's real easy to do that behind a screen, and that is one of my pet peeves. But am I modeling that for my kids? Am I getting on Facebook or other social media and ripping somebody a new one because I'm behind a screen? Because it's real easy to do that. But trusting God. Do our kids see us pray about decisions? Like I said, mine's getting ready to go to college. We're going to pray about where God wants you to be. Where does he want you to go? She says she wants to stay at home university. I always say we're going to downsize. She says, as long as you have a room for me. She is my homebody.
Home university.
Yes,
I
home
love
university is
that. My
what she
kid was
tells me.
like away university, wherever I can get away from my mom.
Me too. I'm like running off the stage of my diploma going, I'm out of here. So it's hard for me to understand that, but I have to understand my daughter, even though she is totally different than me. My youngest is a lot like me, and we butt heads a lot. Family is more important than work, or family is the most important thing. That may be one of your core values. Do I prove that? Do I stay at work all the time when I'm sitting home at the table with my kids? Do I have my phone or my iPad trying to work while we're having family dinners? And so I think those core values, that can take your discipline back to why you're doing certain things. Be consistent, but avoid being rigid. And somebody told me this before I had kids, and I've never forgotten this. The extremely strict parent and the extremely lenient parent end up with the same child. My parents were very strict, and it may be a generational thing. You may be, that's just how they were. No offense to my parents. I love my parents. They live 4 houses down from me, and I love them with all my heart. But they were extremely strict. And I never knew why they made certain rules. Sometimes I felt like they just made rules just to make rules. But the extremely strict parent and the extremely lenient parent can end up with the same child. So I do want to caution you, be consistent, but being rigid will cause your kids to be rebellious and push away. So. All right, still me.
Still you,
We're moving
yes.
on to point 2, and I promise we're going to speed up some. Next thing is knowing their friends, and all this is going to get to those hard conversations that you have with your kids. Your kids are watching you, and they know what is important to you. This goes back to your core values. Does your daughter choose friends that reflect your core values? When you have a child, they have this friend, and you're like, I don't know about them. You can have those conversations with them. Does this child make you better, or do they make you worse? Does this child reflect the values that we have as a family? And I think that is so important. Your daughter is going to gravitate where her bucket is filled. If you have a school counselor, they probably talk about bucket fillers. But they are going to go where their bucket is filled. And teens and tweens, the 2 things that fill their bucket are belonging and significance. Whether they belong and do they feel significant. Belonging, where do they get their undivided attention? Are you talking to them like this? And I'm preaching to the choir here because I am jealous of that too. And I have to mentally say, okay, I'm putting that down to listen to you. Where do they get reassurance that they're loved unconditionally? They make a mistake, are they still loved? Do they know they make a big mistake? I still love you, but there are consequences to your actions. Significance, where does your daughter feel like she is listened to? Where does she feel like she is heard? And is it by you? Is it by their friends? Is it by a boyfriend? Is it on social media? That's what you got to ask, because they're going to gravitate to where they can get that bucket filled with belonging and with significance. And we know that Jesus is where we get that, and we're going to talk about that at the end.
And it's so important that you mentioned that, because having a child that's about to turn 21, I have zero control over his relationships and friendships while he's off at college. And that was hard for me because I wanted to feel that control, but I knew that I didn't have it. So I really had to pray that the things we had put in place prior to him getting out were still going to be there as he made choices with those friendships, because as they get into their 20s, they are also looking for significance and belonging in those relationships. So I'm going to talk a little bit about social media and cell phones. So I did not let my oldest have a cell phone until he was 12. At that time, it was a slide-up phone. Can I get a witness? Slide phone, flip phone, remember those? And I remember it wasn't a smartphone. So I remember the first time we got a smartphone. Now, these resources that are up here on the slide, I'm actually techie girl. I've got a QR code at the end of this that you can scan, and it will get you all these slides, and all of these resources are linked. So if you can't see those, you'll have access to them. But when we got him a smartphone, and I realized that the internet, the World Wide Web, was now open to my child, we decided we would have a cell phone contract with him. And I went looking on the internet for somebody else's cell phone contract, and I found something and adapted it for him. And he had to sign it. Some of the things on there were like, this phone does not belong to me. It is subject to search at any moment. I do not pay the bills for this phone. Data can be cut off at any, all of those things. I need to be smart with this and not drop it or leave it or all those things. But then got into bigger things like that this is powerful and it can be used for good or for evil. And so that was my first cell phone contract with him. Fast forward to the next 12-year-old to come in our house. He was counting the days till he turned 12 so he could get a phone. And now the bad thing is the younger ones had iPads earlier than the oldest did. So they were used to having like movies and games and things on their iPad, but the phone gave them the freedom to have Wi-Fi wherever and all of that. And so his cell phone contract was much more detailed because we've come a long way, baby. And I found one that made him initial by each sentence. And one of the sentences said, I will not take naked pictures of myself and send them, and if I receive a naked picture, I will immediately take my device to an adult. And I remember we made him read it aloud to us, and I remember him saying, naked. Like, didn't want to say the word naked loudly, and I thought in his 12-year-old brain, he's thinking, why would anybody have naked pictures? He was kind of weirded out about that. But we have to spell it out for kids. So have a contract. Social media is a way to connect, and I would venture to say over the last year, social media activity has exponentially grown because people had to find ways to connect because they couldn't physically connect with people. It should be a connection tool, but we know it's drama. I am that mom who follows or requests to follow any and all kids that are my kids' age. Now, my college-age son had to tell me, Mom, just because they're tagged in a fraternity picture doesn't mean you should go follow them. I still totally do it. But I did decide that one of his fraternity brothers' weightlifting Instagram account felt a little pervy for me to watch, so I unfollowed that one. But overall, I want to be in the know. And guess what? I don't care if I'm that mom. And so his friends will follow me back. And he even had a friend who did something like screenshot, sending something on Snapchat. Oh, Brandy followed me. How cool is that? Like, I'm not the cool mom, but thanks. So I decided last night to figure out what does my daughter know and how does she know it? So I brought Layla in, sat her on the couch and said, I gotta ask you some questions. She goes, okay, because my daughter loves to talk. You talk about word vomit? If you get her talking, you're like, will she ever stop? And so I said, okay, Layla, tell me what you think is the most popular social media, because she's not allowed to have social media yet. And we ended up having to get her a phone at 11, cue the resentment from the two boys, because her brother was now a middle school athlete and she was going to be home by herself for 2 hours. And we don't have a home phone anymore. So I had to eat those words, and she has a phone at 11, no social media though. What's the best social media, most popular? TikTok, because there's fun dances and famous people. Now, what was Abby's reaction? to TikTok.
People dance and it's stupid. That's why 17-year-old. So
So 2 different views of
remember,
TikTok.
she's antisocial, so
Yes.
she's like, I don't see the point.
So I asked Layla about drugs. I said, what do you know about drugs? She said, well, they have the DARE program we're going through right now, so I hear a lot about drugs. I'm like, awesome, thanks, Springville Elementary. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with her knowing about that because I said, well, do you know what a vape is? She goes, yes, they showed us one at the DARE program. And then also there's commercials that talk about vaping and it's bad. But there are flavors, evidently, Mom. I was like, okay, yeah, they're bad. I said, what about weed? You know what weed is? She goes, it's in that song by Justin Bieber called Holy, and Chance the Rapper says it. Guess who put that on her playlist? Okay, Justin Bieber found Jesus, but somehow he and Chance the Rapper are okay with weed. So she wanted to know, what is weed? I'm like, okay, weed is something you smoke. It's a drug. It's illegal. Not good. Moving on. And what did Abby say about weed?
It grows in the yard, and I said, not that. You know what I'm talking about? She said, people smoke it. I said, yes. And she said, now she has a little group of friends. They have their own Instagram page. You know, she just now is a part of it, so she just got on Instagram. She said, remember, Mom, I have 5 friends, and my daughter will tell you it's quality over quantity any day. She said, I don't need more than that. I don't need to be popular. I don't need to do that. But now when you're a principal's kid, it's kind of nerdy. Nobody wants to hang out with you because I think you'll get in trouble. So if you need to lie and tell the kids you're a principal, then do that. You'll cut out some of the bad friends. But she said, yeah, people smoke it. And I said, okay, do anybody smoke it? No. Okay. She said, I'm sure I know this kid that sits by me in class. I bet he does. Oh. But everybody, like the vaping is off the charts. I can't take kids doing it in bathrooms of school, and I don't care. You can be in a good school, you can be in a good school, you can be in a bad school, you can be whatever. Kids are doing it. They're doing it in classrooms. They get it here. They do this, and they blow the smoke down their shirt. It's everywhere, and that is a conversation I've had with my kids. Why don't we do that? Because it's terrible for your body. Yeah. Because we don't know what that's going to do to you. And being anatomy, I've been to, we used to go to the gross anatomy lab. We would hold smokers' lungs, and they're this black, and they sound just like this when you hit them on a table. And so, and I'll tell that to them. And I say, it's like a Nerf football that's just hard as a rock, and it's supposed to be squishy like that, but you hit it. And so because it's bad for your body, not because that's gross or what, that's an opinion. But the fact is, you don't know what that's going to do to you.
So the favorite one, I said, okay, Layla, now I want to talk to you about something. You know, we've had a little talk about your body. She goes, la, 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 la. I said, we've had a talk about your body. She started her period at 10 this summer. I was not ready. Okay. I had talked to her briefly about her body, but I thought we had a couple of years. So she has been well-versed in her body and all of the changes it's going through. She no longer is stick thin like some of her friends. She has curves. She weighs as much as her brother, who's 2 years older than her, and she's very body conscious. And so I said, we've talked about those changes. What do you know about sex? And she goes, la, 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 la. I said, okay, I'm asking because I want to know. I said, I know you've seen TV shows and movies where people are in the bed together. She goes, can we just skip past this question? I said, well, I want to know. She goes, I just skipped those things on those shows. I said, okay. She's not ready for anything beyond that. But I said, you do know that we've talked about your body and areas that are personal and private. And I know all that, Mom, I know all that. They don't want to talk about it. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. She was like, move on. Best advice when it comes to knowing their friends, monitor their screen time. Take their phone at night. If you can possibly not let your kids have their phones in their bedrooms, that's a huge one. Require that they ask to download any apps. And you can, there are settings on iPhone that I can show you that allow you to do that. There is a such thing as binge everything, binge social media, binging Netflix, binging video games. It releases dopamine and it makes you an angry person when you have to stop doing it. So if your kids have ever, if you've ever asked them to go unload the dishwasher and they're watching a YouTube video and they go, "Row!" there's a chemical reason for that. So we have to forcibly remove the screen time, and there's ways to monitor that. The other thing I will mention is once my oldest became a teen driver, I downloaded the app called Life 360. It's been around for a while, and you may have heard of it. My oldest, he didn't tell me this, but I found out from some friends, he referred to it as Ruin My Life 360, but I'm totally okay with that because it has kept him honest over the years. It is still on his phone. His college friends made fun of him. And he says was his response. Probably not, but let's just pretend it was. He said his response was, I didn't pay for this phone. I don't pay the bill on this phone. So until I do, I can't say that they cannot have that on there. Because he knows Mom has said, I don't care if you come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. I just care that you come in and I see that you've arrived at the Kappa Sigma house. I don't care what time it is. I'm not trying to find where you are. But there's some peace of mind that goes into that. So I'm a huge proponent of Life 360. I feel like I should work for these people. I pay for the premium account, but there's a free account that you can try out, and it gives you 2 check-in points. It lets you know when they arrive, when they leave, whatever. But I love it. These tech resources are some great links, and like I said, you'll have access to those, and you can look at them after the fact. Okay, moving on. Know their environment. Know their environment. And so if you know your daughter and you know their friends, you've got to know their environment. Now, sometimes that's the school. And so, can we move to the next slide? Know your environment. There you go. Sorry, I'm just making sure we're staying on track. Keeping up with their world, talking to them about their phones, when to use it, when it's appropriate to use it, scheduling unplugged time for them in their environment, what areas are sacred, teaching them about communication, because as much as I teach technology, I also teach people technology is the erosion of our communication skills. And as a former theater and drama and speech teacher, it hurts my heart when students would write in text language and only be able to speak to you if looking down, not making eye contact. So all of those things, teaching them that their environment is important and that they need to connect with it. Girls talk a lot, like I said, unless they're Abby, and then she's like, try to refrain from advice. And that is so hard for me, y'all. I'm a fixer, so I want to fix it when she tells me something. And so just like reining it in and not saying, here's what you should do, but saying questions like, what if that happened to you? What would you do, or what would you think? Or how would you handle that differently when they're telling you about other people? Because they're much more comfortable telling you about what happened at school with other people than they are with anything that happened with them. And then Julie already mentioned this. Constantly tell them they're valuable and they're worthy of love. I mentioned that Layla is 11. She is curvy. She takes some tumbling and dance classes and everything. The last 2 years, she has not loved costume try-on day because you are in a room with all these other girls trying on costumes, and theirs just slide right on, and hers is like, I'm like, welcome to the rest of your life. But the images in media tell you the story that you all have to be a certain way. And when your friends post pictures, it's the prettiest picture. And I remember thinking this is the dumbest thing ever, but it's so true. If girls don't have enough likes on a picture, they'll take it down. That's how driven they are by people's opinions. So just teaching them that their mental health and their well-being in that area is vitally important, that modesty is vitally important, because once they start advertising themselves in a way that is, as Julie was saying earlier, scantily clad, once they start doing a lot of that, especially on their social media account, they are sending a message to people, and that's the image that they portray. And self-confidence, having that confidence in yourself and knowing that your value comes from God.
Don't be intimidated to have hard conversations. And I know sometimes your face may turn 7 shades of red, but sometimes if you tell your kids, I know this isn't the most comfortable thing to talk about, but we're going to talk about that. Vaping, drugs, sex, sexting, pornography, pedophiles. Those are things that they are going to have to deal with in this world. And talking about social media, I know girls that are 16 years old, they put pictures on their public Instagram page when they are half dressed, half their body parts are hanging out. And I'm not talking just a short skirt. I'm talking bikini with their booty hanging out. And I'm telling you, and I want to go tell that mom, there are pedophiles out there who are masturbating looking at your daughter. And I don't think people realize that. They want the likes, they want the popularity, but it is dangerous. It is absolutely dangerous. And so those are the conversations that you've got to have with your kids. I don't really post pictures of my kids in bathing suits. I post on vacation. I don't post a lot in bathing. I mean, it may be from here up, but mine are also pretty covered up. They're pretty modest. But what they're going to hear these things at school. They're going to hear these things from their friends. It doesn't mean their friends are bad. They're curious. First time I caught a kid looking at pornography was in probably my first or second year teaching. It was on a flip phone. We were in a break, and they were all together, and I had on flip-flops, and I was walking over there, and I was like, oh, that woman has a bottle stuck somewhere it doesn't need to be going. And so I was like, and he closed that thing. I was like, you off this now, 16. And that was in 2000. And we'll tell you, you're about 2 clicks away from pornography at any time. And Brandy's going to say this is her line, you can't unchocolate the milk. Once they see it, they can't unsee it. And you've heard the toothpaste, that you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's out, it's out. So you have got to have those conversations with your kids. You have got to get over the embarrassment. My high school anatomy teacher, he said, we're going to reproductive system, and we're going to say the word penis. And he said, what I want you to do, your homework tonight, is to go home, look in the mirror, and say penis 5 times. Okay, I'm hearing this as a 17-year-old. Okay, I had no brothers. I didn't know about all that, so I had a sister. And so, because he said, if you laugh, you're in trouble. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, and he was real country, so how he said it was even funny. And I had this boy behind me sticking his finger in my back trying to make me laugh. But so, we've got to get over that when talking to our kids, because I'm going to tell you, this is probably one of the most telling stories, and I still tell this story. I had a senior, I was teaching anatomy, and she was probably early pregnant at the time, because she was pregnant at the time she graduated high school. We were teaching the bones, the skeleton, and she said, that's a boy, that's a girl. And I said, how do you know that's a girl skeleton? Because it has to do with her hips and that kind of stuff. And she went, because they're missing a bone. She thought the penis is a bone. And she's pregnant. She's having sex, but doesn't know anything about the body. So that's what I'm saying. They're going to learn it from somewhere, and they're going to ask someone.
I've asked my oldest, where did you find out some of this stuff? And he goes, Mom, the public school bus. And I was like, oh.
And so, we've always, I think we went to a phase where my parents never talked about that. We did not talk about sex. We did not talk about anything else. Then I think we went to a phase where we had the conversation, and then we never talked about it again, because that is forbidden. If you aren't talking about those things day in, day out, teachable moments, you're missing opportunities, and it becomes less awkward every time. Homosexuality on TV. My kids love Survivor. There's always a homosexual couple on there, and we always talk. That is not God's way, right? And they say yes. I had to talk to my oldest about homosexuality about in 2nd grade, because 2 of her best friends have uncles that are gay. And so somebody in the class had said, they're gay, that's gay. It will upset them because they thought, anyway, it was just a big mess. So I just had to explain to her that you have 2 of your best friends have uncles that are gay. So we've been having these conversations for a long time, but you've got to find a way to have those conversations with your kid. And like I said, my oldest, if I sit, like last night I said, okay, so tell me what you know about sex. She went, I'm not talking about that right now. I'm going to get a shower. I said, okay, because she doesn't want that conversation. But if I can hit her every now and then with just little spurts, that's good. My youngest, she'll sit and have a conversation. She's going to ask all kinds of questions. The first conversation I had with my oldest about sex was when she said, they were in a truck stop on the way back from Dolphin Island from a gifted field trip, and her and a friend said, what is a glow-in-the-dark condom? And I was like, well, here we go.
Thank you, truck stop bathroom.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's how we started. That's what triggered the first conversation.
We are officially over time.
Way
We're
over
going to
time.
move on past other things about knowing your environment. It's better to be real than right. Julie wrote that too, and I really like that. It's better to be real than right. It is okay to tell your children about mistakes that you've made. It is okay to tell them that you messed up. Case in point, I mentioned that my daughter does not have social media. I have TikTok on my phone. I've made one TikTok in my life. I didn't dance. But I have it really for research purposes. The irony is that I also had it on my JSU-owned iPad, and the security team there asked me to remove it. I felt like, oh, sorry. Anyway, I do have it for research purposes, and so I have TikTok, and she asked me, could she just look at it on my phone? And I said, sure. And she would take my phone for a long period of time watching TikTok. And I said, now be sure, I'm thinking I would be the smart mom, be sure you're only following people you know or these verified certain famous people that I approve, and you're only looking at the people that you know. And I thought, well, I've given her a lot of parameters there. Well, I look through TikTok and I'm looking at some of the people she follows, and one kid that's in her school is like posting so many TikTok videos and so many dances that really were not age appropriate for her. And then I'm noticing that every time I scroll, some of the latest trends, the first 2 words are the F-bomb or bitch. They're calling people that. That's all the latest sound trends on TikTok. And when she came to ask for my phone, I said, we're gonna pull away from you looking at TikTok. Because she wanted to make the videos and she could make them and they were unpublished on my account. So she still felt like she was, we have pulled back on TikTok. What do you mean? And she cries, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Mom is saying, as a parent, it's my job to protect you, and right now, TikTok is not the environment you need. Now, have I let her have little 30-minute moments of going to watch some TikTok stuff? Yes, because she's got to learn what's okay. Did we go and unfollow some people? Yes, we did. Anyway, your social media accounts, when your children have social media, be sure that you know the privacy settings. They need to be private, only to friends, not friends of friends, not public. And they're going to fight you on that because they want the likes and the follows and everything else. Make your home a safe place to share. These are real questions from my children. My oldest came home and said, Mom, what's a tampole? A what? A tampole. Some kid on the bus threw something in my seat and said, look out, it's a tampole. I said, tampon, okay, we're gonna have this conversation now. And he was 12 and he freaked out. My middle school son asked me what the word rape means. What does rape mean? Thank you, missionary at a church talking about Africa and the people that were raped. And you know what was interesting? He wanted to know why he used that word because Mom, sometimes in my online games where we're playing online, somebody will say, ooh, you got raped. And I was like, do what? And all of a sudden I realized all these 4th and 5th grade boys were using a word they did not understand. And once I gave him the definition, he goes, I'm never using that word again. Good. You need to know that's not okay. What's a prostitute? Thank you to my pastor for mentioning prostitute Rahab. Okay, he was, at least the middle school kid was listening. But there's a whole new conversation.
That was 2 weeks ago at our house, and mine said, what is it? Somebody said prostitute, and I said, do y'all know what that is? They were like, no. I said, it's a man or woman who does sexual favors for money. They're like, oh, okay.
Yes,
so, I mean, I'm
on.
honest.
Yes.
I'm telling you, it is.
And
it's
then
honest.
Julie's, why are 2 men holding hands at Disney World?
Like,
You've got those conversations. So I do have some resources here, and one of them is a book that I used with my daughter when we first started talking, and this one is 7 Lessons to Introduce Your Child to Biblical Sexuality. And I actually got this as an ebook, and it's on my iPad, so we can just deal with little pieces of it, and then there's also a physical book that you can order. So next up, no God. We're getting to the God part, I promise. This crazy duo up here, we're almost finished.
One of those resources is Passport to Purity. I had a teacher who took her daughter on a weekend, so if your daughter is one of those that can deal with a weekend of that, that is an option there. She loved that with her, doing that with her daughter, and that's also on Amazon, so there's a link there. Knowing God, make encouragement a habit. Like I said, where is your daughter's bucket being filled? There's no greater belonging or significance that will come from knowing Jesus, and that's what my kids have to know. Make sure your kids know that. And so sometimes we'll say, only thing that matters is what Jesus thinks and what Jesus would do. That's it. And I know sometimes that's a cop-out, but like the high road, I tell them the high road is full of potholes and quicksand, but you have to take the high road. And that sometimes is just knowing Jesus is proud of what I'm doing, okay, because I made the right choice. People will fail you, but Jesus will never fail you, and that's important for my kids to know. Remind your daughters of this regularly. Put verses on their mirror. I text my kids every morning the Bible verse from the Bible app. I asked them if they read it one day. They said no. They don't read it every day. And then one day I didn't send it, and my little one was like, "You didn't send your text this morning." So I know they care. They know that I care, but I do it every morning. I'm drying my hair, and I'm sending their text to them. So just finding ways to encourage your kids and keeping those verses and keeping Jesus in front of them, because the world wants to push it away.
And then pray for your kids. You know this, and I'm going to tell you during the worship music when the Jeremy Camp song came on and talked about God is for you and for your children and their children. Like, I got super emotional thinking about what we were going to discuss here, because this is a big deal. It's the most important thing you'll do in your lifetime, is give your children the legacy of raising them in a godly home and teaching them the right things to do. And it's going to be their children that will benefit as well, and their children and future generations. Our church a few years ago went through the Shema, which is a Jewish blessing, and it's basically from Deuteronomy 6:4-9, and it shows up several other places in the Bible. But here it is from Deuteronomy. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." We want our children to know that. We want them to love the Lord with everything. It says, "Keep these words that I'm commanding to you today in your heart. Recite them to your children and talk about them when you're at home and when you're away, when you lie down and when you rise. Bind them as a sign on your hand, fix them as an emblem on your forehead, and write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." That is a powerful blessing. And when we look at that and we think, am I surrounding my children with scripture? Do I have it around my house? Is it where they can't avoid it and escape it? Because sometimes, like the other song that we played earlier, we have an agenda. We forget all the other stuff. We're so busy. But if we're constantly praying and we put that scripture out there, I say there's a lot of times you just throw stuff at a wall and pray some of it sticks. And that is motherhood for us a lot of mornings in my house, because we're like flying. She's so good. She's drying her hair, sending a Bible verse. I'm drying my hair, screaming, "Has anybody brushed their teeth yet?" You know, so I mean, it is crazy. But we did bring along, Julie got these biblical virtues to pray over your kids. Is there a children's ministry that passed that out? So. It's got 31 different virtues with verses that go with it, and you can grab one before you leave. But it's just so important, because not only are you praying for your kids, but you're praying specific items, virtues over your kids, and I think that's so important.
And remember, I'm super organized. Like, I need a plan. And so, like, there's 31. So every day of the month, because pray for your kids. Okay, I pray for their future spouse. I pray for their salvation, those things. But there's just a lot of other things in there. But every day it could give you something to pray for. I know every month doesn't have 31 days, but it does give you something that you could pray for to guide your prayer life for your kids every day. Yeah.
So that's it. The last slide has got a QR code on it, and we tried it out a little while ago. And internet for me, I have Verizon, is a little bit crazy in this building. But in the perfect world, you can take a camera on your iPhone and not necessarily take a picture of it, but if you can scan it, it will pull up the URL for this slideshow and all the links and resources. If that doesn't work because of the internet here, you can just take a picture of it, and when you go outside, you and a friend can then scan that code, and it will take you to the slides. If you're like, I don't know what you just said, that was a lot of tech talk, then you can meet me after and I'll help you out with that. So, oh, you have a group me. I love That's group awesome. Me and Remind and all that jazz. So, yep. I do want to just close us with prayer. And thank you guys so much for being an awesome audience. And if we have time, we can answer any
Are we
questions.
okay? Okay.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
sorry.
So I'm gonna close us in prayer for this part, and then we'll free for all with the crazy questions. Dear Lord, we just come to you right now as moms. And we just pray for your guidance over our decisions. We thank you so much for friendships, people that keep us accountable. I thank you for Heather and the team that put together this conference. We're not here by mistake. There are no accidents. You're here for a reason. And Lord, I just hope that some of the words that Julie and I spoke today, that you are able to speak through them, and they've planted some seeds and given some people some opportunities to really think about this crazy journey we're all on called motherhood. Lord, I just pray over all of these ladies, daughters, and all of their children. Lord, that you would put a hedge of protection over them, and that we would take these opportunities and not miss one of them to pray over our kids and to speak life into our kids every day. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, this is the part we're nervous about. Do you have any questions?
Anything.
Anything.
You won't embarrass me. Yeah. You won't embarrass me or us.
She's an anatomy teacher. You won't embarrass her.
Doesn't
I
bother
will
me.
probably snicker, but
It
she'll
doesn't
be
bother
fine.
me. So. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
If that was mine, I think I would start with questions. Do you think that's a great place for you to go? We did an analogy to in my house, like somebody standing on a chair, and I'm going to pull you down. But then they stand on the chair, and I say, okay, pick me up, put me on that chair with you. It's a lot easier to pull somebody down than it is to pick somebody up. So I think I try to lead them to their own understanding. But it depends on the age too. I mean, you're talking about an 11-year-old, but I'm talking about a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, because I want them to hear my thought process of how I got to that decision, and I guess that's working with adults and working with teachers too. I mean, adults not like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And so sometimes you have to lead people to where you want them to go. And I think that's important for them to understand your thought process. Now it may come that they may never come to it and be like, nope, not going, because you know what, I'm the mom and God blessed me to be your parent and make those decisions and take care of you. And it may come to that.
For me, it was weird because my oldest, his friendships, he got fewer and fewer as he got older. He started making those decisions for himself. My daughter, on the other hand, she wants lots of friends. And we even had a friend over the other night, and my 20-year-old sends me a screenshot where the little girl has texted, hey, it's, in the little girl's name, poop. That's what she texted my son from Layla's phone. So I called Layla in there. I said, hey, look at this. She goes, oh yeah, Virginia got my phone and texted some people. And I'm like, that's not okay. Like, we can't allow that. Like, we can't let other people I knew that who she was texting, but it's still not okay. And so from this point forward, if your friend gets your phone and texts other people from it, and I find out, you lose your phone. She didn't understand why that's a problem. And I can't parent the other child. So I can parent my child, and I can tell her, this is not okay because you knew this time, but you may not know the next time. And I know that's like a different example, but we wish we could just decide they're friends and just call out the rest, or tell those friends, you don't need to act this way, but it's hard. Yeah, I don't know what's too rigid and what's it's a balance, and it's different with every kid too.
I will say too, I wanted to, when we're talking about kids getting a phone and kids getting their phones early, I know, because I don't have a home phone anymore, so you struggle with that. When my kids were young, when they were, Abby maybe was 11, 10, something like that, and Audrey was 7, we had what was called the extra phone, and that extra phone was for when they went to someone's house, because I'm real funny about my kids spending out in places, like I have to know the parents, it's very important to me, because I'm like, there's always a crazy uncle you don't know about. Anyway, but so I want them going to a house, I want them to be able to get in touch with me. That is important to me. What if they can't find the mom's phone, and what if something happens? Like, I want them in touch with me. So we had what we called the extra phones. We did that for years. So if Abby went to somebody's house, she got the extra phone. If Audrey went to somebody's house, she got the extra phone, but they understood it wasn't their phone. So if you struggle with age, if you have younger ones, that was one thing that let us put that off a little bit longer, until she started playing sports and started playing basketball, and after school, then she had to have her own phone.
Yeah, Layla learned the hard lesson about if your phone dies at a friend's house and I can't get in touch with you, you also lose your phone.
If you don't respond to my text, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
The purpose of your phone is not your social calendar. The purpose of your phone is to be in contact with me. And if I'm not going to text you all the time, but if I want to know where you are and what you're doing, if you don't respond, you're in trouble, because that's irresponsible, because I want to know where you are.
We're probably more rigid than a
Probably.
lot. So we're probably more in line with the way you parent as far as strict as
But my
concerned.
kids understand. I mean, if you said, why is your mom like that? She'd say, because she wants to make sure we're safe. But I have my parents on Life 360. I have 2 groups. My parents are in their 70s, and I have my sister who lives in Atlanta. She didn't want to be on there. I said, I just want to know if you're in a ditch somewhere. She's a single mom, and so they know that my whole family is on Life 360. So that was pretty good for us too, because like I said, my parents are getting older, and I just want to make sure I know where they are.
Yeah. Yes.